right, welcome. Are you guys having a fun time at Planet Comicon? Do we have some big fans of the DC Universe? All right, well, our moderator, you know her from Bring It On and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Let's welcome Claire Kramer.
Hi, guys. Thanks for hanging out in here today. You guys having a good time? Yeah? Planet Comicon 2017, killing it? Yeah? Couple people are like, yeah, I think so. Let's try that again. Are you guys having a good time? You guys want to meet some stars from DC TV? All right, guys. Let's welcome to the stage David DeSchmalchin. Michael Rowe! Michael, come on out. Scoot one more over. Maggie Giha! Right there, Michael. And Teddy Sears! Hi, guys.
Hey.
Really bright up here,
Hi.
isn't it?
I mean, I normally say, like, have you guys been to Kansas City before? But David, you're from here.
Yes! Woo! I'm a Shawnee Mission South graduate, and boo,
Wait, someone
boo,
booed?
come on. Who's that? Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
They're turning on you already.
All right, I'm a Royals fan. How about that?
Yeah. Wait, but
Thank
here
you.
we're going to be the real judge. Favorite barbecue joint?
Jack Stack.
That's what I had for
But
lunch.
there's new places. I mean, I moved away from Kansas City 20 years ago, and I have come back to visit when I visit family, but I always like, gotta go to Jack Stack, gotta go to Jack Stack, or gotta go to, you know, my other handful of favorites were like Zarda, Hayward's, and then we came back last summer, I shot a movie here, and so we lived here for almost 2 months, and there's all these new places that I didn't know of, at least when I lived there, so this Joe's was
So you're, like,
pretty darn
rediscovering
good,
your
and
own-
Q39, all these like really awesome places. So, but Jack Stack's still my favorite.
Okay, well, that's what I had for lunch, and it was delicious, I gotta say that. Some might look at this lineup and be like, this is the DC villains of television, you know? Do you guys view your characters as villains necessarily, or give me a perspective from an acting point of view?
Yeah, Zoom is 1,000% a villain. I don't think
Yeah,
there's
I
any.
would say
I don't
so.
think anybody's gonna confuse it.
You know, I'm
What
trying
was
to
funny was backstage we were all looking at each other and meeting and talking, and we've all been on, you know, episodes that have overlapped. We've all been, but we were on the same episode but didn't work together. I think you all similarly in the.
We were on the same show, but didn't.
Same
We were on the
universe.
same show, but didn't work together. I forgot about my mic.
Yeah, yeah.
I said that to somebody earlier at these Comic-Cons for me, playing somebody who's just kind of creeping around the shadows on a show. Sometimes even if I'm in the same scene as an actor, they're not in the same room. They're not doing it with me when we film it. But I get to meet them at these things, so it's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah. This has been really fun. This does bring the universe that much smaller, and it's a good chance to sort of fan out on people who you've grown up seeing. I'm standing next to Jason Isaacs in our room there, and I sort of can't get
fangirled
over.
over him.
Yeah,
big
I'm
time.
fangirling like like schwitzing, you know, like next to him. He's a handsome man.
Were you pumping him for information on Star Trek Discovery?
I couldn't even. He has like a force field around him. I couldn't even get that close. Yeah, no.
So some of these characters that you guys are portraying are decades old, and you know, the origin material is, there's so much you can go to. How did you prepare for your roles, you know?
For me, I was on Gotham. I played Dwight, who's just created just for the show. He's an acolyte of Jerome, so that was cool because I definitely have had some experience in being like a minion of the Joker in my career, and I also am a lifelong comic geek, so I kind of pulled from that. And then on The Flash, I was really nervous because when they offered me Abra, I had just been reading the Rebirth version of Teen Titans where they reintroduced Abra, and he was kind of different than the Abra I was more familiar with from the past. So the way that they wrote the character and the way it seemed like they wanted to approach it was taking a little bit from the incarnation that we're seeing in 2017, where he's a little more kind of badass. And then old school Abra is a little more like kind of just a whack job, you know? And so we melded those together, and it was also really cool for me in preparing because I got to work with some real illusionists and magicians because, you know, Abra is just, he's an illusionist, he's a magician. He doesn't actually have magical powers, he's using technology. So I got a chance to prepare by learning how to do card flourishes and how to roll coins. Those little things that you take for granted when you watch a real magician or illusionist, they've spent their lives doing that. And I have, you know, like a week to cram that.
Dude, can you learn that in a week?
Yeah. And the director was like, it would be really cool if he does the thing where he's walking and the card spins on his finger and everything. And everybody looked at her and were like, okay, let's be realistic about this. Can I even make it look realistic how I pull cards out? That's hard. That takes practice. So that was kind of how I went about digging into it.
Maggie, what about you with
Yeah, for Ivy, I was really lucky. I had Claire Foley, all of her performance in season 1 and 2 to go off of. I didn't want to copy her, you know, because the character did evolve and change after she was touched by Marv. But I did try to emulate some of her mannerisms and her speech patterns a little bit to make it believable, and I like to think I look like her a little.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I went off of, I had a little bit of Claire, a little bit of Uma Thurman, and then, of course, the comics. They just came out in January, I think, with Ivy's very first mini-series, so I made sure to get my hands on that right away. And yeah, there haven't been, I don't think, any other live-action Ivies. Correct me if I'm wrong, but those are my influences.
Absolutely. Teddy, when did you know that you weren't Jay Garrick?
Before I even said yes to the job. I auditioned when I auditioned for Flash, it was with a set of what they call dummy sides. The audition wasn't from the script. It was something that Greg Berlanti had written just for our audition, and it didn't give away anything except that this character was going to be, in season 2, a mentor figure for Barry Allen. I didn't watch the first season, and had I probably could have put 2 and 2 together. In the last episode when the helmet came out, you know, I probably would have, had I known, you know, pieced it together. So I went in, I read for it, the bosses liked it, and so when they called to say, you know, we'd like you to do it, but here's what we're thinking for the season. Actually, here's what we're doing for the season, and we want to lay it out for you. I jumped. I think it sounded like an unbelievable opportunity. You know, actors just want to work, right? Like, it's sort of amazing that anyone gets hired because there's so many talented people, and when our number gets called, we always kind of pinch ourselves. I think we all have confidence in what we do, but it could always go another way. So that's thrilling in itself to have a show like The Flash, you know, want me to be a part of it. But to have it change midway through the season, if you haven't seen season 2, you should probably take off, because I'm about to
Spoilers.
say something. And to have it switch in the middle and go the completely opposite direction was such a great gift. So.
And as an actor, did you prefer playing the earnest, you know, Jay, or the evil Hunter?
I thought so. I grew really quite attached to playing Jay Garrick because he's a lot closer to me, I think, you know, as I am day to day in life. And also there's something about that, you know, that earnest, you know, all-American, aw-shucks kind of hero from the 40s that was really fun to play. But as soon as they introduced the Zoom character and I got to you know, wear those shoes, it was a lot more fun. It's always more fun to play bad. There's just sort of, there's more to do, and you can get and go to weirder and darker and crazier and creepier places, and so that was a lot of fun. So that was more fun.
Okay, yeah. Well, evil then. You could just say more fun. Evil.
Yeah, evil. Yeah, evil.
They're more fun.
Evil.
It's okay. We can admit that.
Michael,
Evil.
What was it like for you to play the Earth 2 version of Deadshot?
Okay, so I was actually on tour playing music when I got the script, and I missed the table read. And so I showed up on set, and I was like, how backwards do you want this character to be? And they're like, oh, way backwards. So we did the first, take, and they're like, even more, like, you gotta go huge, you gotta make this guy total dork, like, non-confident, like, the opposite of everything. So I just kind of like dove into the biggest version of it that I could, and then I heard the writer who was on set start to laugh, and I was like, okay, I guess we got it now.
You're like, I'm onto something.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
this is good. What tell us about your music?
Well, I started out playing in a punk rock band. I grew up in a small island on the east coast of Canada, and had sort of a song that they played on the radio one summer. So I decided to pack it up and hit the road and never look back. Did it for a long time, and then when the band broke up, my younger brother got me into acting. And it was actually doing it's comedy sketches and short films, and that's another reason why it was really cool to do that version of Floyd. I always get a couple of like zingers as Deadshot, on Arrow, but to actually be the comic relief of the episode was fun to flex those muscles.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how much did Earth 1 Floyd influence Earth 2 Floyd?
It was just like, gave him that comparison. Like, if he's this, then he has to be the opposite. So it was just that platform, So on Earth 1, he is very confident. He's the best at what he does. He doesn't second guess everything. So I'm like, okay, I guess the Earth 2 version still lives with his mom and goes to therapy. You know what I mean? Like,
and we all know you're never really dead on the Arrowverse. So if Floyd, could come back, what's that look like to you?
yeah.
What are you gonna pitch the writers?
He's not very easy to kill, is he? I mean, he's already been shot in the face with an arrow, and yeah, him coming back. I would like to think that in the explosion, he actually had like a new version of the metal mask that folds over his face as the building blows up and protects him. And then he comes back, and Diggle is in, his strange place, and Deadshot kind of drags him to the dark side.
Okay, that's legit, dude. That could happen. I like it. You guys like that? David, when you were growing up here in Kansas City, did you ever picture playing a, supervillain?
I picture in my mind, I fantasized. I always played the bad guys when we would play. If we were playing G.I. Joe, I wanted to be Destro. If we were playing, it didn't matter. If we were playing He-Man, I wanted to be Mum-Ra. And comic books were a huge part of my life. Like I said, grew up in Overland Park, and I used to shop at a place called Clint's South. Clint's Comics there's one on Westport, and then there's one out in Overland Park. And I was mildly obsessed with, it's so interesting, the professional career that I've been able to have as an actor, because I was mildly obsessed on the DC side of things with the villains. And in all truth, the Joker was always my favorite villain, and I never, to this day, my comics are so meticulous, my wife makes fun of me, but I didn't really ever mess with them, but I would make photocopies so that I could cut out images and put on my wall. And then on the Marvel side, the first thing that I collected on a serious basis was right around the time the West Coast Avengers spun off. So on the hero side of things, I was really obsessed with the heroes from the Marvel world. But my first film that I ever got to be in, I got to work for the Joker, and that was a pinch me moment, or don't pinch me moment, because I don't want to wake up if it's not true. And then I hadn't done much television, and then this last year, it was a big year of television for me. It was really, really fun, and a lot of dreams come true, but to go back and work for the Joker again and to get to play another villain, it's so fun. Oh my goodness.
And did I read that you were not crossing over, but you're also in some Marvel content on the big screen?
I did Ant-Man.
You did Ant-Man and the Wasp also?
And now Ant-Man and the Wasp, we start shooting in like a month and a half, I think.
Who's directing that?
Peyton Reed, who directed Ant-Man, yeah.
And who directed my first movie.
He's the best, isn't he?
He's the best. I love Peyton.
I do too. I just saw him the other night. We were at the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 premiere, and I didn't know if Ant-Man 2 was happening or not, but he's a huge comic maniac like me, so he watches all the stuff. So it was cool for me and him to catch up, because he's like, "You're Abracadabra? And how is this? And how did you do that?" It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. If you guys have questions, line up. We will get through as many as we can. And Maggie, with taking the role from Claire, you said you did watch some of the performance, but how much did that really influence your perception of the character?
Yeah, well, Claire did such a great job at playing Ivy. such a creepy, terrifying little girl, you know? And I wanted to use season 3 to sort of make a hybrid, I guess, between Claire's version of Ivy and then the Ivy we know from the comics. I think at first I thought I was supposed to just play her as the Ivy we know from the comics, really mature, much older and seductive, but it's been fun because over the course of season 3, I've been able to play a little bit into that, but also still keep that childlike innocence to her.
Yeah.
So she's a little lighter on the show, maybe a little bit comedic. Gotham is pretty dark, and there's very little comedy, so I really liked being able to do that. And yeah, I mean, she was a huge part of my interpretation of the character, for sure.
And I like that you didn't drop that youthful or, you know, the mindset of the young mindset.
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
incorporated that into your version.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of confusion too about how Marv changed her. You know, I mean, obviously she was changed physically, but I think a lot of people were concerned and wondered, was she changed mentally or emotionally? And I think she absolutely was. But for me, it wasn't so much about that. It was more about her, you know, she's missed out on all these years of her life experience. Mm-hmm. So there's a naivety to her. Naivete. How do you say that? Naivete? Yeah.
Absolutely. Teddy, do you think Hunter was in love with Caitlin?
Do I think Hunter was
in love?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Andrew Kreisberg, our head writer, he was very adamant. He either emailed or called, but he one-on-one said to me, everything that Hunter did as Jay was fake, was
Okay.
a game, you know, except falling for Caitlin, which was not part of the plan. So that was the sort of the unexpected thing that happened along the way, but it was kind of not funny, but you know, cut to Zoom has chained Caitlin to his bed because that's what you do when you fall in love with someone, right? It's like not the way to treat a woman, man. That's not what one does. But so yeah, he sort of had a very misguided sense of what that meant. But yes, that love was authentic, and
That was real.
that was important for the writers to have be the truth.
That's very cool. All right, we'll take our first question. How are you?
Marvel has a unified universe where the movies and the TV, they're all one. But that's not the case in DC. So there are comparisons between who you play on TV and the movie version. How does that influence playing the different characters that you are? I know, for instance, Deadshot, I mean, you're Will Smith, you know, in the movie. So what's that like?
They're one and the same. No, that's actually a good question. The DCU hasn't sort of had the same crossover mixing of the series and the films. So what's sort of the take on that from your perspective?
I mean, there's two ways to do it, right? And these two companies are in competition with each other, so one does it one way, maybe the other just doesn't want to follow their lead. I think that having the opportunity to tell your story over 23 episodes per season is a bonus than having to try to wrap it all up in 2.5 hours, you know what I mean? When it comes to me seeing somebody else play the character, it doesn't really affect what I do. And I've only, I think, appeared one more time since the movie came out. So, you know, I did what I did and took it a certain way, and then he did what he did, and I think that they're very different, but I think that's okay.
I agree. I think it's so fun, and I can't wait to see who they cast as Ivy and Gotham City Sirens. I can't wait. I like seeing all the different interpretations, you know? I think it's great.
I like the way that the MCU has created. I think, and I think the DC TVU is just destroying it on the television side of things. I think the DC TV stuff is amazing. I think that and a lot of times when I see what's going on in the DC cinematic universe, I wish that they were watching the DC TVU a little more, because I think that the DC TV shows in many ways are superior to some of the DC films. Now, I think that so just like growing up, there's so many things I loved in the Marvel comics, and there's so many things I loved in the DC comics. I think I think Marvel has some amazing TV shows too, but I think Marvel is just crushing on the film side. But I mean, maybe I'm partial. I don't know.
Could be. But I, you know, that's a common perception, I think.
Man, the CW shows are so like, and what's happening with Gotham on Fox and the DC. I just think their TV stuff is so awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my question is for Teddy. My question is, how did you play Jay in the relationship with Caitlyn, also while having to play the villain as Zoom?
That's a good question, and I guess the simple answer is we only know as actors what to do based on the words that are on the page. And the fact that I knew what was coming, that Jay was going to be making this change, was something that the writers had told me in June. We started shooting in July, but I don't think in the script it was ever addressed until when we shot it in November. And so even though I was told it was coming, I didn't know that it was actually coming, and I was actually maybe hoping that it wasn't coming because I was having such a good time playing Jay. So even though I was told that this turn was going to happen, I always had to just do what was written on the page. And that stories can change, the writers can change their minds, and I certainly didn't want the audience to know what was coming. How did I do it? I just always tried to play the truth of what was right in front of me, which was here is a man who is captivated by this woman, who's as mysterious to him as maybe parts of himself that he doesn't quite know yet, and he's just very intrigued, well, whatever that is. And I just tried to follow that through line. And also, these two are finding each other at a time when she's just lost her husband. He is new to this new place, to Earth One, and they were both, I think, strangers in a strange land, and they found a commonality in that, and that was really early on. That was episode 2, and that really helped form the foundation of, I think, where these two were going to go. And when it changed to be Zoom, it was a bit bonkers. It's nothing that I know how to relate to. I don't know how to treat a woman by, I don't know, in the way that Hunter did. But again, it's about the truth of, I love you, and this is how I show my love. And the two characters just showed it in markedly different ways. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi.
Really quick for you, who's your favorite Royals player? I'm just really curious.
You mean, so I was in 6th grade when George Brett helped us go to the World Series and win. That's the picture that I actually just got a bumper sticker, George Brett for president. Does anybody old enough to remember those bumper stickers? So they were on our cars, which my parents sold eventually. And so of all time, and I hope now that I work in like entertainment, sometime when I'm back in Kansas City, I'll get to like meet him at something, but I'll probably like geek out a little bit. But I'll show you something cool.
Oh boy.
Here we go. I remember Brett Saberhagen too. Do you guys remember Brett Saberhagen? Do you remember when he was doing like, I used to have a VHS tape from, I used to watch Cremation Mortem on TV 41, and Brett Saberhagen was doing like car commercials where he'd like pitch from the mountain and then come down and be like, hey, come down to Shawnee Parkway Ford or whatever. And I used to rewatch that because I thought he was so cool.
Okay.
That's
Go ahead,
awesome.
Nick, did you have another question?
Yeah, and Teddy, what's the funniest thing that's ever happened on the set of Flash?
So I used to laugh a lot. And well, on set, I do. I'm laughing now. Yeah, I used to laugh a lot, but now.
But now I never
now
laugh.
But now I don't. So then the guys figured out pretty quickly that they could make me laugh whenever they wanted. Grant and Carlos and Tom especially. Tom's like the set, I don't know, prankster. And there was one take. My stepfather had come to visit. He was in Vancouver for work. Vancouver's where we shoot the show, so he'd come to set. He was hanging out. And I think the guys thought it would be pretty cool to embarrass me in front of my father-in-law. Sorry, I confused it. My father-in-law was in visiting. So they thought it would be funny to sort of embarrass me. And it's my close-up. It's kind of an intense scene. I'm opposite Carlos, and Grant and Tom are also in the scene, but so they're all off camera. And I start my line, and it was something like, God, I don't know, maybe the Geomancer episode. I was like, Geomancer. So I'm going to start talking, and then I'm going to pretend to be Carlos, okay? Geomancer, shut up, Teddy! And I just started laughing uncontrollably because I know what they're doing. They're trying to embarrass me, and and they know they can, and that was a recurring thing. I just found out recently they called me the Labrador because apparently I'm like I'm over eager and I'm always like, hey guys, how's it going? Isn't today a great day? And they figured out pretty quickly that they could abuse that. So that was funny.
And he has webbed feet, and he's a really good swimmer.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good question. I mean, yeah, that was it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, if you have
Thanks
to be,
for nothing.
compared to a dog, that's not a bad one.
No, it's not exactly.
Yeah,
I'd take a Labrador
yeah,
over.
that's good. I
a
like
lot
it.
Of others.
Hi.
First, I had to agree, go Patriots, because Shawnee Mission South myself. But I have two questions, one for you and one for David. How was it like to work with Zachary Quinto on American Horror Story?
Phenomenal. I'd always been a fan of Zach, and so I auditioned for the part that Zach played, and I want to say they saw a dozen guys, 10 guys. Zach was not one of them. I think they offered it to Zach. They saw all of us, people who were willing to come in and read, and so all of us who came in to read were in consideration for Zach's partner on the show, and very luckily I got picked for that. I was thrilled because he killed it on Heroes, and then he was in Star Trek, and so we were shooting the first season of American Horror Story after the first Star Trek had come out and before the second one was about to start. So I was listen, as an actor who's just trying to have some sort of a career, to be matched up with someone of his caliber who, to me, had been doing dynamite work in both TV and film. It was just a real gift. It was a real blessing. And then lump that into a cast that included all of these other phenomenal actors. We know what Jessica Lange can do on down. It was one of the greater experiences I'd ever had.
And then for David, who was better, Heath or the guy who plays Jerome as the Joker? Like, who did you like better? I mean,
That's such a mean question.
Oh boy.
No, that's difficult in a lot of ways to answer because better, I mean, that's such a subjective adjective or a term.
So I think, like, who did you like working with better?
Oh, who did I like working with better? Oh man, I loved working with both of them. It's two totally different experiences now, mind you. When I went to work on The Dark Knight, that was the first time I'd ever been on a film set. I was doing a play, and they were looking at like local hires in Chicago to do the clowns and the opening bank heist. And so I went in to audition for that, and the casting director saw paranoid schizophrenic written all over this, because he then brought me in to meet Christopher Nolan, who I met with briefly, and who then ultimately cast me as Thomas. And so I showed up. I mean, there was probably a fair amount of pee in my pants at the end of those first days. I was so scared, and a comic geek who's always praying for. I was so grateful to be making my living on the boards in Chicago but I always prayed, like, if there was ever this chance that I could get a chance to work in a film, that was my big dream, to go to Hollywood. I wanted to work in movies. So when that happened, I was so scared and nervous, and everybody was very kind to me, but Heath especially was. I only spent a week with that man, but it changed my life. And he was not only a legend on screen, but in person, the kindness and generosity of his spirit. He never used his double, or even when he was not clearly in shot. They had several doubles for him, and he wanted to stay and hang with me and help with that. Now fast forward, I go to do Gotham this last year, so that was almost 10 years after shooting. I think I shot Gotham 8 years after shooting The Dark Knight. Now my career has changed, things are different, and I'm on this show, and I'm trying to resurrect this guy who is supposed to be my idol, you know, my hero, and Cameron is so fun to work with because he's so dedicated to that role, you guys. It's so cool, like when we would get in makeup in the morning, and he starts the work from the time he gets in the chair. He gets his music on, he starts to get in character, and but he also, like Heath, has a really good sense of humor. So we also had some fun just getting to talk. So I'm not trying to like dodge your question. They both did such phenomenal jobs. What Heath did cinematically is one of the greatest film performances, you know, of all time. And what Cameron's doing on the TV show is one of the best, you know, TV villains of all time. So man, I'm just a lucky mother flower that I get to play with both of these dudes, right? I mean, yeah, clap, yes, because it's it's amazing. I'm very lucky. But those guys, yeah, not that I wouldn't love someday to get my shot at that role.
Well, put it out there.
You heard it here first.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. My question is for all of you. How do you guys get into the mindset of playing a DC TV supervillain?
How do you get, and moreover, like I guess as an actor, you mentioned music and wardrobe, and how do you bring on that character? What influences you as an actor? What's your process? We can start with you, Maggie.
Okay. For me, the sets on Gotham are incredible, and the whole environment that the crew creates for us as actors, it's like no acting required because you just step in, and then of course the other actors too. I mean, we're given so much on Gotham to work with, and also my character, the way they developed Ivy this season, is so close to my own personality that I have very little to do.
And Michael, what about you? What, you know, especially with your own musical background and expressing yourself that way as well.
Yeah, I based sort of the character on a lot of the badasses that I grew up watching. I guess just like a little bit of Henry Rollins in them, a couple of professional wrestlers mixed in there.
Oh, yeah.
A little Jake the Snake in there, a little Roddy Piper. But I started doing weird stuff, like just experimenting, like living most of my life at night and not hanging out with people as much and just sort of seeing what that world is like and find those little dark places. So you figure it out, but then, you know, the costume has a lot to do with it too, and especially covering up one eye really changes how you see the world. So I felt like at a certain point, I would get on set, I would put on the eye patch, and like my voice would just automatically drop down and into the character. Like it was just, you know, it was just there.
Yeah, and Teddy, what about you?
I don't know. I just tried to kind of hang around in uncomfortable places. It's such an actory thing to say, but like you know, uncomfortable sort of stuff that I don't maybe live my life doing. I mean, one of them, a fun thing to play with Zoom was this sort of obsession and maybe jealousy at Barry. You know, that these two had the same thing happen to them as children, and one guy went one way with love and affection from a family, and the other in Hunter went the other way, and you know, without that in his life, and how there was a lot to play with there. And also I think he was so sure of who he was and what his mission was, and there was a big element of gamesmanship too, about this idea of, it's very a sociopathic thing to do, but this playing with another human being because it's fun, because you can, and because it feels like a game. And these are all things that I can't understand, but I could try to play with them, and I could try to just, and then trust whatever was coming up on the day in the set. The set did a lot of work, the costume, of course, but you know, there were lots of takes that weren't used because they just weren't quite right, and we would find them. For example, the scene where Barry's father gets killed, the first few takes, I was crying. And then the next few takes, I was laughing. And then the ones that they ended up using were the ones that were not either, but they were very. So there was a process of sort of finding it when we were shooting it as well. And some directors won't let you have that many takes, so it's sort of got lucky that this particular director had me do it so many different times that we finally, So there was a bit of finding it as well, and ultimately trusting that the editors, the ones who piece the story together, are going to have enough weird stuff to craft a character out of.
It's a very collaborative effort. It's not
Yes.
just us.
Love the 24 Legacy water bottle, by the way.
Oh, this 24 Legacy water bottle? Currently airing on Hulu and Fox Now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
David, clearly you're a nerd, so this question is going to be a cheat for you, so you answer it last. But if for everyone else that's not as much of a nerd, welcome home, by the way.
Thank you.
If you were given a chance to play a superhero, not a villain, who would you pick? And feel free to say Walking Dead. It would not offend me at all.
Superhero. Do you
Can I
guys
get
have
back to
anything
you
on your
that?
radar?
I want to think about that for a long time.
I mean, maybe come back to me, but I loved playing Jay Garrick. I was a bit disappointed that
Not shocked you
it
said
didn't.
that.
Yeah, it was just so great, and I think it was a good fit for me personally. I think John Wesley Shipp is the guy because traditionally Garrick
Met him
has
last
the Grey Temples. He's the sort of the elder statesman of that whole league. But yeah, that was really significant for me. But I'm sure I can come up with someone better than that. Yeah,
Actually,
but that's where we'll start there.
I met John last month, so he's
You did?
cool. Yes.
Yeah, he's cool, right? Yeah, can't hate that guy. He's a nice
No,
guy.
he's amazing.
Yeah, I just bought these guys another 30 seconds. So yeah.
Thanks, I still didn't come up with my
Oh,
answer.
okay, all right.
I don't know who I'd pick. I mean,
I
Like,
honestly
I
have
love
never
what-
thought about playing a hero before. I don't feel
I
like
don't want to play a hero.
I could probably name a half dozen other anti-heroes or supervillains, but I don't know. I've never really pictured myself in that role. And with this sort of like resting asshole face I suffer from, I don't think casting does either.
I said that in an interview about you last night. Those exact words.
So I got David. We're gonna let you answer.
Well, like I said before, I would love to take on Batsy at some point, but as a hero, and some people argue with me, he is absolutely a hero. I've always dreamed of playing Morbius, the living vampire, because I think that he
That's
needs
good.
to be introduced into the MCU and do a little interacting with Spidey, perhaps. They always start as enemies, but then they realize that they're on the same side. And I'll never get cast as Spectre, but one of my all-time favorite comics my whole life has been Moon Knight. So in my dream version, I would look like one of these two guys, and maybe I could play Moon Knight, but I look like me, so I'm probably
Well, then
closer
pick
to
their heroes
Morbius.
for them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pick their heroes for them then.
Oh, Moon Knight. Go for Moon Knight, you guys. Moon Knight would be great. Let's see. Who would they be good as? Let's see here. Well, they need to reboot. Sorry, guys, but Fantastic Four. We need to restart one more time.
Yes!
And I could see
Yeah.
a really great Johnny Storm. I think that would be awesome. Yeah, if you could be Firestorm.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
I can see that.
And let's see, yeah, down at the end. I
So
mean,
you
I
guys-
really actually do see like a Moon Knight, Mark Spector kind of vibe. I think that could be really kind of freaking awesome. So,
I just want to work, man. Just,
all right, tell.
Yes.
Just, I'll
I
take
heard
whatever.
a rumor that Netflix was like considering a Moon Knight, but also like they say everything. So who knows?
Netflix. Yeah, they're always concerned. Are
Yeah.
you Morgan, by the way?
Yes.
You look great.
Thank you.
Hey, you look awesome, dude.
All right. Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Hi.
Hi. I'm kind of curious, and this is a question for him. How much mobility did you have in the suit for Zoom?
Full mobility. It was. I get this question a lot because it looks like a big, heavy suit, something that you would probably get quite hot in. I know that they shelled out a lot of money to do it right. It was all leather and it was very sort of lightweight leather. Full mobility. Yeah, the mask was really comfortable. It was great. It's kind of like probably as comfy as the one you have on. I mean, it's not like, I don't know, is that a velour Barry Allen tracksuit? Yeah, but it was comfy. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your question. Hi.
David, this one I made through the TV shows. I saw Belko Experiment. I really liked it. What was it like working with Michael Rooker? You know, a little dynamic with him in that movie was very fascinating. It only lasted like 20 minutes.
Thanks, dude. I love Rooker, man. In fact, I might have to videotape a message from all you guys here because I know he wanted to be here and he's doing.
I really would love to meet him.
He'll come back, but he's doing his Guardians press tour right now. Always a fan of his, had been since Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer and his early stuff in like JFK, et cetera, et cetera. So when I moved to LA, I became friends with James, who makes the Guardians movies, but also has this great group of friends, and Rooker is one of them. And so I got to become friends with a really core, awesome group of guys and women. And so when James was making Belko, he was like, "Come, you got to be in the film." And I get down there, and it was so fun because Rooker and we created this kind of dynamic between the characters that felt a little bit George and Lenny. You know, it felt a little like of Mice and Men, and I was kind of slow, and he was like my caretaker. And Rooker improvised all that stuff, like bumping our heads together, and he goes, "Duke, let's do a Duke. When you get scared, we'll do a Duke. It'll calm you down." Now, whenever I see him, he grabs me and gives me a Duke. So it was a blast. It was super fun. He's died more ways than I've died on camera, but it was fun that I got to. And sorry for anyone who hasn't seen the film yet, but I brained the crud out of him, and it was really fun and terrifying and gross. But thanks for seeing that. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, of course. I just have one more question. Michael, this season, Arrow, were you just supposed to be like a hallucination to Diggle in your one appearance? I saw you in this season.
Yeah, like Ghost of Christmas Past.
It had that kind of vibe.
I love how they kind of showed it and then ripped the rug out, and everybody was just like, "What?" Because,
what's going
it started playing and everybody starts going, "Oh my God, Deadshot's back," on Twitter and stuff like that. And then you only got to wait like 20 minutes. It's like, what the hell?
I know.
I kind of like messing with you guys like that, so I was a fan.
I just like yours and Diggle's interaction. I think they need to like at some point continue that again. Because clearly when Diggle starts giving you some shit, you're perfect to show up.
Yeah. Man, we had fancy plans, trust me. It's just we weren't we had to shelf it, unfortunately.
That's a buzzkill.
Yeah, well, cross your fingers and never know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi. My question's for Teddy. Of course, I love you as Zoom, but I also really loved your work on Masters of Sex.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
And so I was just kind of wondering what it was like to play, such a lovable sleaze.
Yes, that's actually, you said it perfectly. Well, it's nice to be lovable. I mean, I didn't know that was going to be the reaction. It certainly wasn't. I wasn't making any attempts in that way. But I do think he's lovable in that way because he was just so misguided in his attempts to get what he wanted. And all these characters in 1956 is where we started, are all groping around in the dark in their own way, trying to figure out how best to live their lives. And particularly when it came to the topic of sex, which Masters and Johnson pioneered as a legitimate science, Kinsey before them, but they were really the ones who were doing the experimental work. It just wasn't talked about. And and they were doing their work in St. Louis, I believe, at WashU. So, this is not New York or San Francisco. It was sort of hushed whispers at cocktail parties. It wasn't an out there thing that was discussed. So no one really knew what they were doing. And this particular character was just very fun because he was sort of a big id in that way, and he was just trying to satisfy his desires while he had a wife and family at home, but he sort of thought, well, what happens if the hospital doesn't carry over? And it was just very fun to play. He was misguided in his attempts to try to understand himself and what drove this sort of fascination with women. the series was unfortunately canceled after 4 seasons, but it was nice. We got into the 70s, and it was sort of neat to see where they were taking every character, and to be, you know, on the same set with Michael Sheen, who was one of the great actors, and Lizzie Kaplan, whose trajectory is, you know, pretty astronomical, was a real gift. So thank you for your kind words. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you. Do you guys want to make a video?
Just a real quick one. Who wants to help me do this for Rooker? You guys into this? All right, all I'm going to say is, hey, Rooker, we're here in Kansas City, and then I'm going to turn the camera on when you guys say, we love you, Rooker. Can you do that? So I'm going to say, hey, Rooker, we're having a good time here in Kansas City. We love you, Rooker. Okay, that was good practice. That was good. I feel like I see a Yondu out there.
They don't even need a practice.
All right, you didn't. Okay, here we go.
No.
Hey, Rooker, we're here in Kansas City, and we miss you, and... Thanks. That was awesome.
All right, you guys. Did you guys enjoy this hour? Thank you guys so much for. You guys are all here tomorrow too, right? Okay, so make sure you head down and say hi, and let's give one more big round of applause to these guys.
Thank you very much, everybody.
David,
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Michael, Maggie, and Teddy.
All right, we're going to be setting up for the next panel here. American Pie, it's coming along in just a couple minutes, but first, just a couple house cleaning things. First, normally these seats up here are reserved for Fast Pass people, but what I want everybody to do is to come forward. Come on forward and take up all these Fast Pass seats right here. Everybody come forward, and those on the outside, come on in to the center, and let's make this a nice, cozy panel room. Couple notes. That's right, everybody, come on down and fill up these seats. Everybody, sit in the Fast Pass section. Normally we'll reserve these for Fast Pass holders, but it's all right. Just come on down and fill up all these seats. We don't reserve seats in the panel room except if you're a Fast Pass holder. But it's okay for this panel. Just come on down and fill up these seats. Come on in. Just a couple notes. At 6:30, Summer Glau will not be in this room. She is going to be appearing tomorrow. It's been rescheduled. So if you have the app or if you're on Twitter or Facebook, you should have seen the announcement. She will be in room 2103 on Sunday at 3 p.m. That's when the reschedule for Summer Glau has been. And 2103 is just down across the street, and you'll hit the panel room. So Summer Glau at 3 p.m., 2103 tomorrow. Allison Scagliotti will be in room 2103 at 2 p.m. tomorrow. And Jeff Budnick will be at 4 o'clock in 2103.